tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So friends, today I want to continue our exploration or discussion of the Satipatthana Sutta that we started yesterday. And yesterday we covered the first few sections of the mindfulness of the body section. We started with the mindfulness of breathing, and we saw how the posture and then the attention to breathing was the sort of the starting point for the sitting meditation practice, and how and largely it was for that first section for developing concentration and for helping to weaken the hindrances and to achieve some level of tranquility. Because sort of the first stage of meditation is being able to withdraw the mind's attention from the external world and bring it to be centered in the breathing body, or centered in the present moment. And the purpose of using the breathing is because the breathing is the predominant activity that's going on there in the middle of the body, and so it's the perfect thing to use for bringing the attention there. And then again, why do we want to do that? Because, as we've already heard before, the body is really the home for this mind. And the mind operates through the nervous system and the data that's coming from the external world through the senses and through the nervous system, where it's registered, remembered, sorted out in the brain, and we have a conscious experience. So it's setting up the groundwork for being able to access the mental process. So I want to continue our discussion of that. So after getting the mind centered and concentrated, or some degree of tranquility, relaxation, tranquility, then in order to keep the mind in the present moment again, because really the practice of meditation is about holding the mind's attention in the present moment. Because it's always getting pulled by so many external or internal forces to pull us away from that. So the Buddha had us pay attention to the postures. Because again, you can't always sit and meditate 24 hours a day watching your breath. So therefore, when you get up out of meditation, the Buddha gave us a good object to use to continue to maintain that connection to the present moment. So the four postures, whenever you're sitting, to know that you're sitting, and again, to know it means you feel it. You feel the sensations of it. You feel the movements and so on. And whenever you're standing, walking, laying down, and then all the various types of normal things that you do during the day, going here, going there, lifting, stretching out your arms, bending or stretching, eating, obeying the calls of nature and so on. All of these should be equally done with that type of full awareness. And even extending it further to actually know, why am I going to a certain place? And what is the purpose of going there? And is it going to be suitable for my meditation to go there? That's part of the clear comprehension of using the body also in order to understand, that a lot of the things we do with our body get us into difficulties. We're driven to certain places by greed or by anger or by, confusion and so many other, or the precepts, the intention to want to break the precepts and then having to experience the painful results. So a lot of people rush into things without clearly comprehending, what they're going to do and whether the consequences is this going to bring them suffering or not. They're just blindly driven by their lust and their habits and their delusions, rush into things and then regret it later. So using the body with the clear comprehension is a way of minimizing those unwholesome actions by understanding what is it you're about to do, and is it going to be useful and suitable in terms of bringing suffering or happiness, developing more delusions or developing wisdom. So we ended our discussion yesterday with with that section on the full awareness. And, after saying all those things, about the body, he sums up the section by saying, in this way he abides contemplating the body as a body, internally, externally, both internally and externally, and he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And this is how a person abides contemplating the body as a body. In other words, again, he's using this body not to, win Mr. America pageants or, gold medals in Olympics or, seduce others or whatever. He uses it simply for the purpose of developing knowledge and mindfulness. And now the Buddha takes us even sort of deeper into the body. Before we were kind of focused on the surface parts of the body, the posture and what we're doing. But now he's taking us deeper inside. Because as we've already seen that, the mind operates through the nervous system, and most of our feelings and thoughts and impulses arise from the unconscious mind. That means, sort of deeper within. So, in order to be able to clearly see our feelings, mind states, and subtle dhammas, we have to develop a subtler and subtler awareness that sort of takes our attention down to that subtler level. And what we mean by a subtler level means what you're normally not used to seeing. That means, let's say, beneath the skin. So normally no one ever feels much or sees much, from the beneath the skin. So the Buddha is taking us, developing that attention and awareness that can experience those under the skin energies and vibrations that are activating our mental activity. So the next section is on the body parts. So, the instructions were a person reviews this same body up from the soles of the feet and down from the top of the head, bounded by skin, being full of many different types of things. In this body there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, lungs, intestines, contents of the stomach, pus, blood, a few other things, and even the brain. So basically, he's sort of mentally dissecting the body. Of course, some of these things are also on the surface of the body, but that's also done with a purpose, to show that all these different parts of the body, they serve a utilitarian function and purpose for keeping the body together, to keep it healthy and to protect it from, cold and other things. And so it's a way of keeping the attention on the body, but also it has another purpose to show that the body is just a concept in the mind. There's nothing called a body apart from the different parts. So the body, the Buddha sort of analyzed the body into the different parts. And when all these parts are scattered about, then you no longer call it a body. And also it's a way of gaining some detachment to it. Because the body is a very strong point of identification and attachment for a lot of people, especially in this modern era. Vanity and pride and competition to be the most beautiful or strongest or whatever, and all these attachments. Let alone a commercial value of telling people they should have all these beautifying parts and so on. And also to see how the body is constantly in a state of impermanence, and all these parts are subject to change and breaking and disappearing. And it's a lot of trouble to maintain this body. So he wanted people to simply to get a reality check on understanding these different parts of the body. And that they're all subject to impermanence. But so much suffering is connected with this body. And not just aging and death, of course, that's one. But especially with, how many people are suffering because the body's not the way they want it to be. People born with black skin might rather be white. People born with white, they pay money to go get their body tanned in a suntan parlor. They want to be brown. Or people born with black hair want to be a blonde. Or vice versa. Tall people might rather be shorter. Shorter people might rather be taller. So, and people are, it causes them a lot of suffering. Or some people may be born with very relatively speaking, okay, good looks, or something, and others maybe not so. Or, other types of maybe deformities and so on. So, it brings a lot of suffering to a lot of people, and especially about not being satisfied with what you have. So each person is born with a body and whatever, whether gender or type of body, this and that, for perhaps past karmic reasons. We don't know exactly, but a lot of people are not satisfied with it, so they want to change it. And also the fear of death, or fear of getting sick. So showing that the body, its natural condition is it's going to go old, and it's going to be subject to many types of sicknesses and diseases and broken bones and other types of pains come to it because that's its nature. And so this is kind of also part of the kind of the clear comprehension about the body. Anyway, so in the actual meditation practice, some people might get bored with just watching the breath, in, out, we're just sitting, walking, lifting, lowering. Come on, give me something more, give me something else, People get bored easily. So the Buddha said, okay, let's go on a little journey. So on this body, there's hair of the head. Feel that. And you contemplate how hair is impermanent. It grows, you have to keep cutting it. It gets oily and greasy and dirty, and you have to wash it. Of course, people do those things, but still. But what is the purpose of hair? I guess it was, to keep the body warm, right? Keep the body heat in during the cold season, or if you have hair in other places. But most people don't use it for that purpose, do they? We go, no. Or people don't like to see hair on their arms, so they shave it off, or on their legs, as it was something bad, So, anyway, just contemplating what is this hair for, and that it's also impermanent. People are not satisfied with it. And then from the nails, fingernails and toenails, they're constantly growing, and they collect dirt and fungus and all kinds of things, and we have to keep on clipping them, and people paint them, and also people use it as a way to beautify the body, or use them as claws. It could be helpful in some situations, and then the skin just covers the body, and it's subject to all kinds of eruptions and problems. So those are the external parts of the body. Here are the head, here are the body, nails. Oh, I forgot the teeth, right? So teeth are very important for eating, right? But they're also subject to decay, and how much suffering do people have going to the dentist and money their whole life to fix their teeth and so on. So, while doing the exercise, it's just, okay, this body, it's marvelous. I mean, all these things were created by nature or whoever. It's wonderful. I mean, how all these things were, created, and they all have their perfect use, but also to understand that it's impermanent, and it's not made, for creating suffering, or made for wanting to, hurt and harm and abuse others, or just indulge one's lust. To minimize suffering. So, and then the Buddha has you go inside and, just understand that all these other parts of the body, the lungs, heart, intestine, stomach, all these are designed at helping to keep the body functioning, but they're also subject to disease and problems too, and a lot of pain. And it has usually a certain kind of lifespan, and then it naturally dies, or it dies by other purposes also. Contemplation of death is a whole, another subject. But anyway, doing this contemplation can occupy your time. If you get bored, okay, yeah, hair of the head. Can you feel that? And you might feel the itching on the scalp and so on. And when I was in a meditation course in Nepal, my hair became a nest for lice and lice eggs. So they thought it was a perfect nest. I didn't. And I suffered, feeling all these lice crawling on my head. And then I cut it all off. I had a lot of attachment to my hair. The perfect beach boy, hippie image of, bushy blonde hair and all that. But that suffering of feeling those lice, I cut it all off. And then I felt this huge relief. So anyway, we form lots of attachments to these things, and they bring us lots of problems. So anyway, so going through that whole list, it can take up, a whole meditation period just thinking about those things, and you can go back and think of all the problems you've had with them since you were a child up to the present, in one way or another, physical or mental problems with it. And then, but at the end, now, I know Sri Lankans and some people, when they read the sutra, because it says, the actual title of this section is called The Meditation on Foulness. And so some people have misinterpreted this teaching to think the body should be seen as just some stinking cesspit of odors and filth, just because there happens to be some feces in one place and urine in another place and some other odors coming out of it. They think it's just some stinky thing and a foul thing that you should not pay much attention to. Now that is overreaching the Buddha's intention about this contemplation. So you shouldn't kind of see it as that this body is some horrible thing. No, we have to have it to live. It's our vehicle. It's how we experience the world. It's our vehicle to enlightenment, and so we have to take care of it also in a good way. But the main thing is not to be obsessed by it and use the body for things that get us caught up in the karmic suffering. And so as he went through all that, he gives a nice little analogy at the end after naming all these body parts. He says, just as though there was a bag with an opening at both ends full of many sorts of grain. It means different types of grains, like a bag. So there's rice and dal and beans and peas and millet. Bag have all these things in it. And a man with good eyes were to open the bag and look at it and say, this is rice. This is white rice. This is red rice. These are beans. These are peas. and this is dal, this is millet. So to a person examines their body from the soles of the feet upwards, from the head downwards, saying this is a body here, this is head here, this is skin, nails, teeth, heart, liver, lungs, intestines, and so on. Just a kind of a matter-of-factly. In that way, he abides contemplating the body as a body, internally, externally, both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That too is how a person abides contemplating the body as a body. So he contemplates his own body, or her own body as having those parts, and whenever he sees anybody else, he says, yeah, that's just a bunch of parts. Where is a body apart from the parts? You can't see any body apart from the parts. But you see skin, you see hair and nails, and eyes and so on. Of course, part of it too is understanding the arising nature. How do these body parts come to be? How do they cease? And that they're subject to impermanence and so on. So the whole time when you're doing that, you're still maintaining this detachment. Just as with the postures, you're kind of like just sort of watching the body, sitting, kind of almost like internally watching the body sitting there. There's some kind of detached space there. You're cultivating some space between the observing awareness and the object. So even when you're walking, you're kind of just watching the body walking, watching it standing there. Again, not as a visual image, but as a collection of sensations, a mosaic of sensations. And then while you're doing that exercise, you're able to continue to cultivate that detachment. Because it's the attachment and the self-identification with it that brings so much of the problems. The Buddha is having us train our mind to just objectively say, okay, yeah, there's this body there. Okay, there's these body parts, head here, body here, this. So what? You understand their purpose. You try to keep them in good order so that they won't cause you problems. But not to the point of obsessing about them or, again, using them for vanity or for somehow, trying to look better than the others or whatever. Now, the next section. Hello, you want to hear a little more? So now we've gone from a whole body, right? This is very interesting. Buddha was a scientist. You go from the whole body, the external body, then he has it dissected into the parts. And then in this next section called the elements, he has you analyze it into just energy vibrations, or it's called the elements, but elements are just energy vibrations. Because you can still get attached to a body part. Now, when we see a whole body and it's got all the parts on it and they're all vibrant and healthy looking, then of course that's when certain people get attachment or desire to have this body, to hold it or whatever, or to stroke their hair or whatever. And so we get attached to the whole body. But when you pull all the parts off, then usually we wouldn't get attached to the parts. But sorry to say, there are some people who get attached to the parts, to obsess about that. When they're, go pick up somebody's hair or whatever. So you can still get attached to the body parts. Oh, there's a toenail there, But breaking it down into the elemental energies, then there's not much you can really cling to or identify with so much. So, and this is really one of the deeper aspects of the body contemplation, which is the most helpful for understanding how objects get created in the mind. So, and again, in each section, it's, and further, going a little bit further. So from the whole body and parts, and further, we went into all the body parts. Now, and further, the meditator examines this body by means of the 4 elements. In this body, there's the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element. And he gives an example. Just as a butcher, a skilled butcher in the butcher shop, or as a prince went and killed a cow, and then they cut up the cow, and they had hindquarters for sale here, and the shoulders for sale over here, and the tongue, and the tail, and the different parts, cut up in pieces. You wouldn't say, "Hey, I'm going to go buy a cow," or "Look at my cow," do you? No. You say, "Oh, I see a shank here," or a tongue or a tail or whatever piece. When you go to a chicken shop to buy chicken, "Oh, I want some wings," right? We say wings. "Oh, drumstick." You don't say, "I want a whole chicken." So anyway, so it's in that way the person examines this body that. This body is just comprised of earth element, water element, fire element, air element. And in that way, he abides contemplating the body as a body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. So he understands his own body, that's what it's made up of. And whenever he sees somebody else, instead of saying, "Oh, that beautiful blonde hair," just, that's earth element. Or if you see your spit coming out of the mouth, just the water element. Or if you look at the urine, the water element. Or if you got a fire in your stomach and some acid burn and so on, the heat element. Or if you feel your breathing going in and out, or you let some air out of the backside, like, air element. Nothing to get obsessed about. It's just these elements. Again, impersonalized elements. But then really, what is an element? I mean, these are, of course, scientific words or so on. But I like to approach it like this, is that, we call this a body. But what is the body and all the parts made up of? You doctors, right? Basically cells. I mean, material matter, whether it's a huge stone or it's a body, it's made up of cells that we can't even see with the naked eye, actually, one cell. But billions and billions of cells make up this body. And from the moment of conception in 9 months, billions of these cells were made up of virtually from, you could say, nothing. I mean, just some blood and water and whatever. It's amazing when you think about it. But so, what are cells made up of? Let's say molecules, to keep it simple, right? So each cell is made up of several or many molecules. And that gives it, the cell, its more peculiar type of characteristics. And then the DNA is there. And then what are molecules made up of? Atoms. What is revolving around atoms? Or what are atoms made up of? Electrons. Why do they call it electron? Because it's like electricity. It's some kind of energy. And you could break it down further, protons, neutrons. I don't think we need to go there. But the fact that the different amount of electrons that are going around the nucleus of an atom give it its particular qualities, right? H2O, one hydrogen atom and two, I'm not up on my chemistry, I make a mistake. Two electrons going around and give it a H2O or something. So anyway, so if you see it in that way, this body is just condensed energy, right? And that's why it has electromagnetic fields around it. That's what Carillion photography is all about. That's what auras are about. It's about the electricity that's being produced by these billions and billions of electrons that are, of course, they're not visible to our eye, but we take it for granted that they're there. So this is the way that I prefer to do this particular four-element meditation, rather than just saying earth element, water element, fire element, air element, is to kind of break it down into its energy vibrations. So you feel some of that energy as being solid, like you feel your buttocks pressing the cushion. And instead of saying, oh, I got a pain in my, I won't spell it, but, or got something like that, you simply say, oh, that's the earth element. The hardness, or the quality of hardness. Okay? But when you focus on it, and you can get away from your idea of my buttocks, what you feel is actually just some sensations. I like to call them vibrations. And those vibrations happen to, have a hardness or pressure texture to them. Now, some other sensation, like the saliva in your mouth, or tears running down, or your blood, that has a fluid texture to it. But it's just the water vibration. That's what you feel. Because when your eyes are closed, that's all you know is some kind of vibration on the body. So, that's what the Buddha wanted to, anytime you feel any part of the body, it could be put into one of those categories. The solid vibration, fluid vibration, heat vibration, and wind vibration. Because that's actually what the very initial contact of this nervous system are these vibrations going through it. I push my hand there, and so there's a sensation of pressure, a hardness, and that's going through the nervous system to the brain, and the brain, because of its learning and other interconnections, it understands that that's a feeling on the hand, but that's created by the mind, that thought. What we actually feel through the senses is that vibration. And when you're doing the body, when you're meditating, and I say, okay, now feel your hands. Okay, now that's a mental concept, but you know where the hands are because you can locate that sensation where your hands are touching and then kind of reaffirm it. Oh, yes, that's the hands, but hands is a concept created by the mind. Now again, you might say, what's all this about? Where's this going and all that? But no, but it's very important for understanding anatta. So anyway, so you can go through the whole body, but I encourage people just to try to see it as energy vibrations. Whatever you feel in the body, it's just an energy vibration. Whether it's a fluid one, a solid one, or motion or water one, basically they all can be put into just energy vibration. So then basically the body is just energy. And when you do this meditation long enough, and if you've been to the Goenka meditation courses, they specialize in this kind of practice. They don't even go into 32 body parts or anything else. Like they go directly, their practice goes from the Anapanasati directly toward feeling the sensations. And that's a good practice too. But so when you're going through the body, is like what I've suggested so many times, feel your feet pressing, try to feel the sensations on the feet, in the hands, and going through all the different places to feel those sensations, because they're always there. By trillions and trillions of electrons, they're all buzzing and vibrating. But that's like looking underneath the skin with a high-powered microscope. But that's what happens when you develop concentration. That the longer you can keep your attention focused on a limited area and without the hindrances coming in, without dozing off, or without getting dragged away by your thoughts, or squirming around because of pain or something. When the mind is there focused, it's like turning up the power of a microscope. You see subtler and subtler and finer little sensations. Until at some point you can actually feel like when the mind lets go of this idea of my body in a particular shape, which is simply a mental concept produced in the mind, you can have brief, momentary experiences, or there could be longer, of the feeling of a solid body having disappeared. I know some of you probably have had these experiences, if not the whole body, maybe parts of the body, or maybe just for a few moments you say, well, do I have a body? You open your eye, oh yeah, it's still there. It's because it was simply the concept of the solid body in a certain shape. Again, it's a concept, a mental picture that's produced in the brain. And the meditation helps to short-circuit those perceptual processes. And that's when you can have this type of experience where you're experiencing reality as it is. Yata bhuta jnana dasana. Seeing reality as it is. The meaning of it is that you're experiencing those elemental energy vibrations, or just pure awareness as it is, without all of the man-made created concepts and ideas that we've been accumulating for lifetimes and lifetimes. So that aspect of the meditation, actually, that was my most popular. I mean, I did that meditation more than probably a lot of the other ones when I was a young gung-ho monk. And and very immediately I understood how this is the point of that. That meditation was to, just see, stop saying, this is my hand, this is my toothache, this is my this, and this and that. It's just, this is, heat vibration, solid vibration, water vibration, motion vibration, or just simply, it's just energy. And that, again, it helps to create this sort of distance to what is happening. So the main purpose of that meditation is to actually understand the mind and understand how it's what you're actually experiencing through your senses are these vibrations. But immediately the perceptions arise in the mind. And the perceptions you learn through language since you were a baby. But then we lose reality, and then we get attached to these outer objects without understanding what they're made up of. And also that these energy sensations are always changing, And the whole point of, many of the sort of the guided meditations and the yoga, all that is designed at awakening this awareness to these vibrations and sensations. I'm sure, during some of the yoga exercises, right, especially like lifting up the arms, how many people could feel some kind of intense or some type of waves of sensation and so on. They're doing back bends and so on. No? Oh my gosh. Anyway, there's still 4 or 5 days left. Maybe there's some hope for you. But that's one of the main purposes, as I mentioned yesterday, not just the physical exercise as such, but the arousal of the sensations to give you something to then feel. And many of them are quite pleasant and nice. And it helps you to hold the attention there, just feeling this sort of aliveness of the body, and even little itches and prickling sensations. You can just watch them and see how they're not really painful or anything, and you can actually enjoy feeling and observing them, or challenging them when you see a real intense sensation arises that, kind of really triggers off lots of other sensations. They come to a peak, and then they fade away, and just to observe that it's all very interesting. So you make the meditation interesting, not just in, out, That's what happens sometimes. I'm not making fun of that, but we have to go beyond that. But still, this other type of, once you're able to get under the skin and tune into that, because they're all connected in a web. They're all connected in the inner internet. Every cell in the body is connected in that spider web of the nervous system. And that web of the nervous system is connected just like a spider web. A spider attaches his web to a tree branch here and a stone over here and something over here, right? So the web of our nervous system is attached to the 2 eyeballs, the 2 ears, the nose, the tongue, and millions of skin cells. And any time that they are touched, it vibrates that web. And that's what you're feeling. That's what sensation is. It's the vibration, or it's the movement of electromagnetic or neurons and electromagnetic energy through the nervous system, through the brain. And it's the brain that sorts everything out and makes mental pictures and ideas and memories out of what are essentially just vibrations. And so that is another one of the important aspects or results of practicing this kind of the four-element meditation especially. And basically you develop the wisdom that everything is basically just a vibration. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But even that, when you look up here and you see this, it's just electromagnetic energy or colors in a certain shape striking your eye, and all that is going through that whole process where in the brain it says, oh, that's a face, that's so-and-so, or any other object that you might be seeing. But of course, we don't see that process, and then we get attached to the objects. So anyway, I just wanted to try to finish this last part of the... So, going down there, now we've gone from a whole body to body parts, now just energy, and then the last section, what are called the charnel ground contemplations, or cemetery contemplations. And basically, that's a kind of an imagination process in which you understand that when this body dies, its fate is to decompose and return to nature, or to die, and to accept that death is natural, although we don't, death is the only thing certain in life. Life is not certain, but we don't know when the time of death will come. It could come at any time, by any number of means. But, let's say you get my favorite simile or mental story is, walking along a road and I get hit by a semi-truck, and the body knocked 100 feet senseless out to the side of the road, dead. And so the first one is seeing the body laying dead. And it says, so again, a meditator, as though he were to see a corpse thrown on the ground, 1 or 2 days dead, and starting to bloat up and get, puffy. So that's the stage 1, because that's what happens to bodies, especially when they die out into nature. And that's why people quickly gather dead bodies and go to a morgue and embalm them with fluid and put a suit on them. And so you can't see that. But, in India, they used to let the body sit out so you can watch that. Anyway. And then you see it, a couple of days later, oozing matter and worms crawling in and out of it and so on, and the skin splitting open, and basically it goes through the 9 stages of decomposition down to where the body just becomes a heap of blood-smeared bones, and then the bones are scattered in all different directions. And then after more time, those bones get weathered and just become a heap of dust. And then a big wind comes by. This is not part of the sutra, but my own, big wind comes by and blows that dust into nothing. So here we went from a 100 or 200 pound flesh and bone body to nothing, basically, in the state. And if you put it in a crematorium, that could happen within 5 or 6 hours. A 200 pound plus body can be reduced to just white ashes. So again, it shows you the kind of the impermanent, and then even though it appears to be solid, the body's not really solid. So anyway, again, that's just another reality check that that's what happens to the body, and it's nothing to be feared, or it's not morbid. It is what it is. I mean, half of the world still, I don't know about half, but anyway, in a lot of places in the world, we were in the dock, right? And we saw them, well, I don't know if you saw that, but they chop up bodies and put it out on the rocks and let the vultures and birds come and pick up all the flesh. And then the guys pick up the bones and break them all and throw it to the wind, and so on. So anyway, all of these different types of contemplations are just reality checks to get a more realistic idea of what the body is, what its purpose was for. We were born because of karma. We live our life, a certain lifespan. Hopefully we try to use this body in a wise way to further our development in the Dhamma. And then when the time of death comes, to accept it. Even if you have to die younger, that's for whatever karmic reason. And, the body has not gone beyond these states. And so that's another refrain or a continual thing that the Buddha, after all these sections, he said, this too will happen to this body. I'm not free from this. My body is not free from this state. And after the body dies, no one wants it anymore. A person could go to be a gorgeous movie star or whatever, just to use those relative terms, okay? Everybody clamoring to get their body. And 2 hours later, they could be in an accident, smashed up in a car, and their body parts thrown all over the place. Is anybody going to go pick them up and put it in bed? No. They don't want anything to do with it. So, anyway, it's just but these things can happen and do happen. Not that they can, they do happen to, everybody eventually in one way or another. But of course, in the West, we rarely ever talk about those things, but you can certainly see them in media and so on. So anyway, going through all those, that is the end of the body contemplation. So you go from a whole body to the body parts to just energy, vibrations, and then just basically nothing. So, that kind of, when I was a young monk, when I read these sutras in the beginning, I was really, and I would spend a whole meditation just going through sometimes all of them, just as a kind of imagination in the beginning, going through 30 body parts, 32 body parts, and then the 4 elements, and then in imagination, this last one is kind of an imagination, where the other one, actually, you're feeling something, you're feeling the hair on your head, or you're feeling your heart beating, or you're feeling the sensations, but this one is more of imagination. But it keeps you occupied. I mean, that's a topic. So it's also concentration. You can gain access concentration by doing this kind of a discursive analysis, because it's also concentrated. Your mind is distracted by the hindrances, and because of that, the realities of that kind of become more clear in the mind. Okay, so I think we'll stop there for today.